What's up, Wisecrack? Jared again. Director Ari Aster stunned and delighted horror fans with his 2018 familial horror film Hereditary, so expectations for his follow-up were understandably high, and according to contemporary horror king Jordan Peele, Aster more than met those expectations, creating, quote, the most idyllic horror film of all time. Now, Peele enjoys his horror films served with a healthy side of social commentary and deep meaning, as we've covered in our videos on Get Out and Us. So his response got us thinking, is there something meaningful going on in this gnarly vision of the Swedish countryside, or is it all bare carcasses and no substance? Let's find out in this Wisecrack edition on Midsommar, or Midsummer. I'm just gonna call it Midsommar. Deep or dumb. And as always, spoilers ahead. Alright, let's dive into a recap. Midsommar introduces us to 20-something Danny and her douchey boyfriend Christian, who's about to dump her. But when Danny's sister kills herself and her parents, Christian can't exactly peace out. Motivated by guilt, he unenthusiastically invites her to tag along with him and his anthropology grad school bros on a trip to Sweden for a special once every 96 years Midsummer festival. They arrive at an idyllic Swedish commune and shit almost immediately gets weird. Two old people jump off a cliff in a harakiri-esque ritual, this chick puts a pube in Christian's pie, and people dance and moan while tripping balls. These British people are reasonably like, wear out, and promptly disappear.
Has anyone seen Connie?
Things get progressively creepier, and the grad school bros are subsequently killed one by one in creatively horrifying fashion. But things are going comparatively better for Danny, who wins an all-girls stone dance competition, gets crowned May Queen, and is celebrated by the whole community. Then Christian gets roped into a weird sex ritual that Danny sees through a keyhole, but she doesn't have long to mope because there's about to be a cool human sacrifice and she gets to select the 9th person to be set on fire.
We patiently wait your verdict.
She picks, you guessed it, Christian. Danny smiles as he and his fellow sacrificial lamb humans burn. The end. To figure out if this film is deep or not, we first have to decipher Aster's bloody depiction of a midsummer festival. It's important to note that this film is not overly concerned with total anthropological fidelity. Midsummer, though an iconic Swedish holiday, is not a bloodbath where grandpas jump off cliffs or hapless foreigners are put in funny hats and burned to a crisp. According to Poe Tidholm, author of the book Celebrating the Swedish Way, Midsummer is all about celebrating summer, eating herring, drinking aquavit, and staying up late. It is a light and happy tradition. He notes that it is held to welcome summertime and the season of fertility, and involves dancing around maypoles, decorating everything with ferns and plants, and visiting holy springs. As for that death ritual, Tidholm also clarifies that, to the best of his knowledge, there have never been any sacrifices on Midsummer, not even in ancient times. And what about the weird sex stuff? That was completely the twisted brainchild of Aster. However, baby making is a big part of Midsummer, which is why a lot of Swedes are born a square 9 months after the sexy solstice. Cool. And about those psychedelics, apparently celebrating Swedes are far more likely to get boozy than they are to trip balls. Duly noted. But don't go thinking Aster made up everything during a particularly industrious acid trip. Dude did his homework, spending months researching and eventually drawing from Swedish traditions and folklore, as well as Norse mythology. Indeed, Haga is a real rural village, and much of the film's imagery is consistent with real Swedish midsummer celebrations, complete with a maypole. Similarly, the somewhat creepy paintings on the barn walls are also true to real agrarian Swedish society. People really do eat herring and wear flower wreaths. Aster also plucked other religious traditions, like the blessing of the crops, from a famous 19th century anthropological study by James George Fraser. These lighter details, all faithful to Swedish culture, are complicated by the film's darker turns, but we'll get to that later. Aster even went so far as to learn the Scandinavian runic alphabet, which was used to write Germanic languages in northwestern Europe before the adaptation of the Latin alphabet. He told the Ringer that every item of Haga clothing is decorated in specifically chosen runic symbols and in different hieroglyphic language they invented specifically for the film. A notable example comes when Christian dons a white robe before entering the world's weirdest fertility ceremony. The robe is decorated with the upwards arrow Tiwaz symbol, associated with the Nordic god Tyr, who represents bravery, masculine energy, and virility. Fittingly, Tyr sacrifices his hand to save the world, which is appropriate for a dude who's about to be, well, sacrificed. Danny, in contrast, has 2 runes on her dress that showcase her character's duality, an R-shaped Rhytho, which symbolizes journey, and an hourglass-shaped Thagaz rune, which could mean new beginning or loss of hope. Both symbols are up for interpretation, but each feel relevant to Dani's journey. As far as the death stuff goes, Aster was likely inspired by long-debated Viking mythology and folklore. Certain written and visual accounts from the prehistoric Viking period depict sacrifices of horses, dogs, birds, and yes, humans, which apparently occurred every 9 years. These accounts have been disputed by scholars, but they pretty much agree that if human beings were sacrificed, it probably happened before 1050 AD. So, regardless, some creative liberties are being taken. Other striking moments are also infused with elements of Norse mythology. For instance, Christian is put inside a bear carcass before being burned alive. Bears are significant in Norse mythology. Viking men donned bearskins before battle, and some even believe that the skins protected them from fire. Perhaps even more grotesque is the fate of Simon, the British guy who Christian finds splayed open, his lungs somehow still breathing. This gruesome sight is a reenactment of the Blood Eagle, a Viking torture ritual that involves inside-outing a dude. The Blood Eagle was first documented in 865, but scholars are unsure whether it's possible, and none have exactly volunteered to be the guinea pig. Then there are the Harga love rituals, some of which bear resemblance to reality. For instance, we see the Harga young women picking different types of flowers. In real life, they would pick 7 different kinds of flowers and put them under their pillow to conjure dreams of their future mate. Instead, Christian seducer Maya places a carved love rune under his bed. In a more shocking moment, Christian discovers a pubic hair in his pie, a love spell Aster insists comes from actual Swedish folklore. At a different point, Christian's drink is slightly redder than the others, suggesting that there's menstrual blood in there, which Aster also says comes from lore. We've had trouble confirming either practice, and attempting to made the people at the library think that we're weirdos, so don't say we don't make sacrifices for you guys. Anyway, the point is that Aster had fun combining truth and fiction, old and new, mythology and history, to build his creepy haven of cell phone-free agrarian life where ritualized human sacrifice is as normal as sourdough bread. That's certainly not a criticism. If every horror film was confined to reality, the genre would be pretty boring. But in using this potpourri of references, is Aster trying to make a deeper point? Let's look at the 2 very different ways the film's outsider characters react to these rituals. We'll start with Dani, who, despite the demented arsony that's going down, ends the film with a smile. What are we supposed to make of this? Has Dani become evil, or is there something more to it? We think so, and her character arc proves it. Dani begins the film pretty firmly ensconced in a cold, alienating secular society filled with icy, lonely city streets. The colors are muted, and we get the sense that this is not a happy world. After losing her entire family, nobody really comforts Dani, and her shitty boyfriend only stays with her to seem like a good guy. Her world feels pretty absent of community and emotional support. She's shown alone in her house, with phone calls providing much of her communication with the outside world. Her detachment is apparent in her first phone call with Christian. The camera is set squarely on her face, without a single cut to him, implying that she's talking to somebody who isn't fully present.
I'm very lucky to have you.
Several other conversations are shown in mirrors, which could imply that people aren't really connecting, and are only seeing each other's superficial public face. Her boyfriend is constantly trying to get away from her.
I was just gonna go to that party for 45 minutes.
Forgets her birthday, and pressures her to take hallucinogens despite her recurring panic attacks. Early on, their Swedish friend Pelle tells her that, despite being orphaned as a child,
I have always felt held by a family, a real family, which everyone deserves. And you deserve it.
It's clear what she's lacking: love, empathy, and community. And that's exactly what she finds when she encounters the Harga people. Now, although she spends the first half of the film extremely wary and frightened of them, she's eventually seduced by the warmth of their community. Plus drugs. The Harga even seem to move in tandem, as if they're all dancing to the same piece of choreography. They behave like different parts of the same organism. The idea of shared catharsis, both in pain and pleasure, is present throughout the film. When this old man survives his leap off a cliff, the rest of the tribe moan in unison, as if experiencing a collective pain. This is repeated in the final ritual sacrifice, and similarly, during Christian's hot date, we see the women moan in unison with Maya, as if sharing her pleasure. Every feeling experienced is shared by the community. As Aster puts it, their language is empathy. At first, Dani's intimidated by their sense of unity, feeling too scared to join the ritual dancing.
You guys should join.
Oh no, I'm too scared.
However, she does appear to be struck by the connectedness of the people, staring closely during ceremonies. After the horrific sacrifice scene, Danny is visibly stunned and devastated, but she listens attentively as the elder woman explains,
We view life as a circle, a recycle.
as someone who has recently lost her whole family, the idea of life being a circle of rebirth has to be attractive. We see Danny become increasingly more immersed in the Harga culture, as she starts to find the cult, community she craved. Most basically, this is shown in her costume, which transforms from her dark real-world clothing to an apron and eventually a full dress and flower wreath before the maypole dance. Here, she takes more hallucinogens, but this time in a ritualized motion, sharing the experience first with one Harga girl and then with the entire circle of them. Though she's slightly off rhythm, she can't avoid being led into the dance, and the dizzying experience is the first time we see her truly smile. She's finally moving as part of the singular Harga organism. But the most important moment of the film happens after she sees Christian having sex with rando Swedish girl. She bursts into uncontrollable tears, echoing the way she cried after learning about her family's death. Except this time, she's surrounded by a group of Harga women who cry in tandem with her, as if sharing her emotional load and completely empathizing with her pain. Interestingly, Danny's increased inculcation into the cult is mirrored by her increased immersion into nature. This begins psychedelically when she hallucinates her hands growing grass and then her feet turning into grass. Over the course of her May Queen rulership, she becomes covered with more and more flowers to the point of absurdity. By the end, she has almost entirely disappeared into a gown and crown of bright blossoms, symbolizing her surrender to nature and this agrarian society. We see this new fidelity to the Harga society when she picks Christian rather than a Harga to be the 9th sacrifice. As she watches the burning, she experiences pain, but like the Harga, also experiences joy. She's watching the vestiges of her former life crumble and can't help but smile, as she is free to start anew in a community where she can belong and be seen. It's creepy as hell, but makes for pretty great cinema. But if you're not interested in joining a community of happy inbred blonde people, there's another option. Enter Christian and the Dude Bros. They approach the Harga people with the condescending distance of anthropology students working on a thesis, sneaking into temples to take photos of secret religious texts, or watching the rituals as if surveilling animals at a zoo. The crazier the animals act, the better a peer-reviewed paper they'll have. Meanwhile, Mark, the unabashed fool, is more preoccupied with banging Swedish chicks and could care less about their beliefs, as demonstrated when he pees on a sacred tree and can't comprehend their reactions.
I just had to pee.
In general, they approach the Harga culture with the same detached shock and intrigue as us, an audience so alienated from the value of ancient rituals that we're willing to buy into the idea that they could be this horrific, or at least buy in enough for it to effectively scare us. So what is Aster doing here? The way we see it, the film is constantly playing into and subverting our modern secular aversion to mystical traditions. Religious worship has become increasingly alien to many of us, leading theologian David Bentley Hart to write that our religion is one of very comfortable nihilism. We tend to see ritual acts as primitive and potentially barbaric. That this film's particular boogeyman takes the form of very religious Swedes rather than a sadistic serial killer or a shape-shifting clown speaks volumes about our society's fear and aversion to ritual. At the same time, Aster depicts the Harga clan as the precise answer to everything wrong with Danny's life. She's offered complete acceptance, genuine reciprocity, and total empathy. Thus, Midsommar is a shocking reassertion of the value of ritual. No matter how irrational these acts may seem, they have a very rational purpose: to build community and a sense of belonging. We'd go ahead and say that's Wisecrack certified deep. But what do you guys think? Is Midsommar a compelling horror show that comments on our increasingly secular society, or is it just pagan people equals weird?